everybody. Welcome to our press conference that we have each Wednesday morning after a city council meeting, where I like to make a few announcements and then take any questions about actions that were taken at the meeting the night before. I want to start off by tipping my hat and a big shout out to the Lady Falcons for their big win last night in the quarterfinals against Brookhaven, where they won 43-41, and will be heading into the final match, championship match, this Friday at 5 o'clock at the Jackson Coliseum, where they'll be taking on Neshoba Central. So I hope that a lot of folks from the area can go down and support these young ladies. They are to be commended on their efforts, their teachers and their coaches as well. So I just couldn't be more proud of these ladies and what that says for our schools here in Columbus. Also want to remind folks that tonight the meeting will be held at the Boys and Girls Club for Ward 4 for the public school meeting with Dr. Labatt, the superintendent of the schools, where she's going around and being hosted by our council members. Tonight will be Councilman Beard's ward in Ward 4. These meetings are very important. I attended the first one that was held at Sim Scott. And regardless of whether you have a child or a grandchild in the public schools right now, any citizen in Columbus should be interested in knowing what's going on with our public school system. One of the things that Dr. Labatt reminded us at that meeting is that it's easy to point a finger and complain about things going on in the school system. And we've got excellent students in the public schools here in Columbus. Do we have work to do to get to where we want to be? Absolutely. And they would be the first ones to admit that. But I've spent time in the schools, and we have some very dedicated students and faculty, teachers who work tirelessly with these kids, and they really deserve the support of the whole community. A thriving community has a very good public school system, and it's important that we continue to support the schools, and I know the council is committed to that. I'm committed to that, and I just want to get more citizens involved. And let me remind you again, regardless of whether you have a child or a grandchild in the public schools, what goes on there affects your lives on a daily basis here. So I want to encourage all citizens in Columbus to come out. If you live in Ward 4, this would be a good night to come out. The other wards will have events in the coming days. You can go to our website and Facebook page to find those times. You can also go to the schools, the Columbus School District's page, and see the dates and times as well. So I encourage y'all to do that. With that, I will open it up to questions. Yes?
Yesterday when y'all were trying to listen to Will Sanders when he did it, he was going by Zoom. I know y'all had some problems hearing it, and I understand that. Were y'all able to get it where he sent it? I mean, have you been able to check to see if you got that?
He has, yes, he has forwarded the information to us, yes.
One of the council people, during the people talking, got up and left and didn't come back. Anything you know about that? Okay. And the last thing I want to ask is with CFO coming out, it's a big position, it's a very important position. When are we going to get a little bit of more information on that?
Yeah. Well, I'll take that question to talk about a few things that were brought up last night. One of the questions was from Vice Mayor Mickens about the general cash fund report. And the last time that we've had a cash fund report that was in front of the council would have been in December. These are the ones that were reported since I've been in office. We, as you know, have gone without a full-time CFO since September. When I came into office, I also was very anxious for the city to get a forensic audit. And I think I've stated numerous times why. I was also interested in doing the positions of COO and CFO in a way that I thought would be more effective for the city to get a handle on our finances moving forward. The council chose to go in a different direction, and that's fine. That's their right. But I do think we could have moved a little more quickly than we have. When we're hiring these positions, it's important that we find the right fit for the city. As you can imagine, when you're looking for a COO and a CFO, there are not a huge number of people who meet those qualifications. Dealing with city finances is a very different animal than just typical businesses and other things for various reasons, and I'm sure y'all understand most of them. So it's not a secret to anybody that the city has struggled with their finances for quite some time. A few weeks ago, I sent out, and I'll be happy to share this with anybody, when the city brought in Mike Crowder to help after the last embezzlement. He sent out an email to the council and mayor at that time with strong recommendations of things that should happen. He very clearly pointed out the different funds that the city has, how it works, and suggested that many things be put into place which have not been put into place. So none of this information is new to the citizens or to the council. If we were getting from this information that I've seen, from what's happened in our past audit, I'm not sure I trust these completely anyway, if we were getting them. I've got the information that we've gotten from Watkins Ward and Stafford many times, but the council is aware of. I've sent letters to, we don't have a complete audit for 2020, not even started 2021. I had a letter from the state auditor asking why we have not turned it in. I sent them a detailed letter as to why we have not turned it in. And what I was hoping to be able to do as mayor, as of yet, I've not heard back from the state auditor on any of those things. So yes, do we have issues with our monthly financial report? Sure we do, but we have issues that go far deeper than that. So those are the things that I'm hoping that we will be able to move forward with on our CFO coming up soon. We have a search committee. Ms. Pat has been trying to get that search committee together to go over the applicants that we have. We have some good ones. I've talked to some of the council members that are on that committee. They've been narrowing them down, asking my thoughts on some of the ones that we have. So I'm hoping that group will come together soon. We have our new COO in place who is very capable. I would like for her to play a strong role in this process because the person that we hire will be working equally with her, with our department heads and working on our budget. I'm hoping going forward next year, one of the things I've already talked to our new COO about is that, I have found examples from other cities outside of Mississippi where their city hall has a clear report on the functions of the city, what the responsibilities of the mayor and the council are. It has a clear report of all the positions within the city and what they do. And then it has a clear report of budgeting for the city and how those monies are used, how we work with department heads to come up with those things, to determine what the budgets will be and the expenses for the city. Going forward next year, I again hope to have, like we did last year, but more of them, where we do town hall meetings where the citizens can have complete input on what we're trying to do and budget for. I think that's critical, and as long as I'm mayor, I'm going to be working hard to have that kind of process in place. So a long answer to a short question will tell you that we have very good applicants. We are not in a position to release those names right now. We have not even started calling them. We are getting our list together from the members of the search committee who they would like to consider. So as soon as we're in touch with them and have moving the forward process and they're in a comfortable place that we can release a name to the media, we definitely will.
Mm-hmm. One other little thing about the reports. Mayor, just go ahead and speak. I'm sorry.
You're fine. So since we're talking about audit and you're talking about the 2020, 2021, and 2022 audit, it's coming from the mayor himself, from the mayor's office, City Hall. If we're constantly saying that we did not do things correctly in the past, and now we have a new administration, we're still not doing any of the things that we were in fault for in the previous. So if we was to do a audit or a forensic audit at this particular moment in time, 7 months of your career would still be at fault because we have not fixed any of those issues. So coming from the mayor's office and you basically put those people up there or volunteer people to come, and we're still not getting a report, or we're still not getting any information that we need. And we have three different people in the CFO's office, and we're still not getting any information.
Would you trust the reports here that they were pulling together? Would you feel comfortable in the numbers?
It comes from them. I mean, this
Really?
is their job.
When you realize that many of those accounts have been balanced for months on end?
So when you first got here, day one, knowing all of that information.
That's why I asked for a forensic audit.
Do anything from day one.
We've been working since day one to try to do everything we can to get the finances in order. I've said that clearly to the council. You've been aware of it. We tried to get a forensic audit. You voted it down. We took a second vote where the citizens would actually donate money to pay for a forensic audit. You voted that down.
Right.
Why would that be?
Because we're still at fault. We're still not in adherence to any of the things that we were in fault.
And you don't think the forensic audit would help us clear that up?
It will also show that we're still not doing anything.
That's fine. I mean, point your fingers at me if you like. I'm doing the best job that I can up here. The folks that have been here volunteering of their own time are doing it because they love the city, and they're doing everything they can to their ability to make it work. But I would advise you to go back and read this letter from Mr. Crowder that y'all got back in April of 2019.
I wasn't here then.
Okay, well, but you've seen this because I sent it to you. And I've not had any response from you about how you think we can help move forward on this. So yes, I'm open to a forensic audit, and I will take any criticism that they would point towards me as mayor. But it's difficult for me to do the job when I don't have the people in place to help me do it, or a council that seems to be willing to try to try something different.
I mean, I can't speak for anybody else on the council. I can definitely speak for myself.
Go right
I
ahead.
have no problem with trying anything different when the information is sent out correctly. And it's not pointing fingers at someone else that they did when this current administration is literally doing the exact same thing the previous administration did.
Well, that's
It's
your
not
opinion.
worse.
That's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. And, if you want to show evidence of those, that's fine.
The evidence is we haven't got a report, and we got people working in the CFO office.
Well, I think we explained that, and I think Pat explained that too. It's hard for them to give a clear report when they don't have clear numbers to work from. The report that you saw on the 19th, when Mr. Crowder said that the finances are in chaos, and there's not been much done since then to change it. You would also see, as you were a member of the council, that our auditors have pointed out that a lot of the things that y'all put in place, checkpoints to keep fraud from happening again, were not happening. It's going to be in this 2021 audit, or 2020 audit, and you were a councilman at that
So
time.
are they happening now?
What's happening now?
Do we have fixed assets now?
I'm telling you, I wouldn't be comfortable telling you any numbers that we have are clear right now. You're welcome to go up and sit and work with them and work on it and look at it while they're working up there each day. You're more than welcome to go up there. In fact, I would encourage it. And again, let me stress heavily, if you want to vote for a forensic audit, I would love to open them up to let them look at what we've been doing since I've been here. And I will take any criticism or suggestions of improvement that they do. I'm not up here for any other reason but to help the citizens get the information they need.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Good.
All right, Mr. Mayor, switching gears to the presentation by the Director of Public Works, Casey Bush, transitioning from the state of the city's finances. What was your initial reaction, your response to those needs that he presented? You posted recently about the flooding, the drainage problems that the lack of equipment has contributed to, and is there a chance that this could create a bigger financial problem down the line if not addressed?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, and again, just as we were discussing, and I'm sure Councilman Beard can chime in on this as well, the fact that the Public Works Department is underfunded, understaffed, and have equipment that is outdated and needs repairs is not a surprise. Correct? Not a surprise. What we've been doing since I've been here is the interim COO worked very hard with Public Works on their budget, which my understanding is the first time a COO would ever sit down with them to actually go down and look at the things that they needed and actually did it on site, which we try to do with a lot of the departments to get a feel for where the real true needs are and how we can help them get there and how can we find solutions to the problems that we have. And so we came back with a budget that we thought would be helpful to them this year, but the city is still struggling with our finances. So I think we have to work smarter and better at this. That's one of the reasons that I would really like to see us really push forward with getting some matching funds for our ARPA money, because I think it could help in some of these areas. As far as equipment is concerned, Public Works, as we stated last night, is working with our city engineer to determine, are there some things we can do, we can outsource? We've talked about that before. Mr. Bush has pointed out that he's concerned about doing that too often, what that could do to the budget, because it's not cheap to do that. But we've got to find creative ways to bring relief to the citizens to make sure these ditches are being cleaned out on an annual basis, maybe once or twice a year, making sure they have the equipment to do it properly. And what my hope is to also find the resources to fix some of these issues permanently. And that's what I'll continue to do, working closely with Mr. Bush, and also I'm in conversations with members of the Board of Supervisors and also our legislators in Jackson to do everything we can to get as much ARPA money to help in this area.
In your discussions with Mr. Bush or with the Public Works Department, do you get any sense of how it really got to this point and how the Public Works Department has been surviving on Band-Aid solutions?
Well, I'll let Mr. Bush speak to some of that himself. He's here. But what I will say is that is a very difficult job they have, Public Works. It's not just here. It's across the state. I know that Wagner Engineering, who we're working with some now too, has worked very hard with Meridian, Mississippi, to look at their Public Works office, how they can save money, how they can do things differently to be more efficient and effective. I know that they've looked at Public Works before. I think the city did an assessment a while back, and it was even looking at maybe doing away with Public Works and outsourcing all of that work, and determined that was not the most feasible thing to do. Anytime you outsource something like that completely, you do lose some of the control of things happening properly in a timely basis. So look, Public Works is a very difficult area. It's not glamorous work, and it's not high-pay work, but it's very important work. So many of the people that we have working at Public Works are dedicated citizens who have stayed there and worked hard because they want to make a difference. They're easily criticized. If people see them stop for a minute somewhere, they point a finger and say, oh, they're not doing anything. Can we do better? Certainly we can, and we will always strive to do better. But the answer to your overall question is, we will not be able to help Public Works do their job to the best ability until we know where we are financially, and we simply do not.
Excuse me, I've got a couple of questions about the Planning Commission recommendations. Last night, the council, if I recall, approved two recommendations, one regarding an Airbnb in North Haven Woods, and one regarding the definition of bed and breakfast, but there were other recommendations that were tabled until there was more clarity. So I just trying to get some clarity for myself on those issues.
Well, I'm just going to make a quick statement on it, and then I'm going to let the person in the city who knows the most about it. And, Airbnbs are something that are not new to communities. You're seeing them happen all over the country. There are a lot of people who use Airbnbs when they travel in business and in pleasure. Just like the truck ordinance or any of the things that are new to a city that hasn't been the norm, always in the beginning usually causes a lot of confusion and debate. So the city is now trying to figure out the best way to handle Airbnbs and what we do with bed and breakfasts. Starkville dealt with this issue not too long ago, and other cities have as well. So, again, what I'm asking the citizens to do is what I do in most cases like this when these are hot topic issues, and understandably so, when people aren't sure what's going on in their neighborhoods or how other houses close to them are being used or apartments. Should be cause to concern for them, and it should be cause for concern to the city. But what I'm hoping is that we can study this process and look at what other cities have done comparable to us successfully with Airbnbs and the bed and breakfast. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I understand the citizens' concerns, but I also believe that the city has to look at this carefully as we move forward. So, Mr. Kenny, would you like to come up and speak to that? He can speak to it in more detail than I can.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sir.
So, yeah, last night, the mayor and council went along with the recommendation from the planning commission to deny the request for the Airbnb at 3623 Azalea Circle. They also approved the amended definition of bed and breakfast, which simply included the words at the beginning, owner occupied. And the purpose of this was that to clarify that a bed and breakfast had to be owner occupied, thereby the owner having a vested interest in the community. I believe where it got tabled, if I recall, when we got to the definition of short-term rental. So currently, the city of Columbus does not have a definition of short-term rental, which, if and when it is approved, will include such things as Airbnbs and VRBOs. That was the reason the commission recommended that, so we would have a definition to rely on. And the third thing that got tabled was the amendment to the chart of uses permitted, where Airbnb and VRBOs would and would not be approved in what particular zoning districts.
And the planning commission's recommendations, they recommend they be prohibited in R1. Are there any other, first of all, is that correct? And are there any other restrictions in their recommendation?
You are correct. They recommended it not be allowed in the R1 single-family residential district and the C1R neighborhood commercial restricted district, which is a district designed for professional occupations only, such as doctors, lawyers, dentists, things of that nature. The district where they would be approved, once the council decides to look at this again, would be in the C1 neighborhood commercial district. These would be allowed automatically. The C2 community commercial district, which is most of downtown, and the C3 highway commercial district. In all of the other districts, and if you'd like, I'll name them, a person could seek planning approval.
Okay. So in those commercial districts, C1, C2, C3, they just do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
It's my understanding they will need a privilege license, which is a business license, because you're up, but other than that, it would be allowed automatically.
How many Airbnbs are currently operating in Columbus?
To the best of my knowledge, it's 30-ish.
Okay, but they're all in zones that these recommendations would allow?
Well, we're having a little bit of difficulty nailing down the specific address. So far, the site I went on said exact location not provided until after booking. So we're not, I know it showed some pictures of downtown.
But have you issued privilege licenses for those?
Or have not issued a single privilege license.
Okay, so regardless, once this is passed, if it's passed, once this is passed, the people who are operating them would have to come back and get a privilege license.
Yes, sir.
How much would that cost?
Well, that's going to be determined by Mr. Greg Andrews' office. That's where the payment will be accepted.
They would have to have that now, correct?
Well, they should have it now. Yeah, correct. I've actually reached out to Mr. Andrews concerning this. So far, we have not been able to
And
discuss
it's
it.
based on the value of the home, the privilege license amount?
No, I'm not positive about that.
Okay. Well, you said Greg Andrews, and so property value had,
It could be. I'm not exactly sure.
okay. Councilman Beard, if you don't mind, you were the one who moved to table it after there seemed to be a lot of confusion. What drove your motion to table that discussion last night?
I mean, we talked about it and we had some, backup information that was missing. It was just like literally lack of information to visually see.
So y'all didn't have the recommendations in your
We
packet?
had his recommendation, but we didn't have all of the detailed information and different things like that. We did have the recommendation from the planning commission, but, I mean, when we're getting to make these big decisions like that, we need to have as much, clear information as possible, because, like you say, you do have people that are already doing it and not in following the correct rules, so, I mean, we have to make sure we're doing everything correctly. That was my number one reason.
Okay, and hearing what he just said, laying those recommendations out, or, where are you as far as supporting those at this point?
I'm still researching. I mean, we're trying to be a progressive city and change and bring different ideas and different atmosphere into this city, then we have to be open to a lot of different things. And I mean, these discussions are discussions that need to be had, and all information needs to be, viewed correctly. So,
Once it passes, anything in an R1 would be prohibited at that time, or would they have a certain amount of time to?
If it passes as recommended, it would be prohibited in those two districts, R1 and C1R. There was some discussion about whether to possibly consider allowing Airbnbs, short-term rentals in the R1 district. The commission discussed it back and forth, and that was their decision, since that is the most restrictive residential district in the city, to prohibit that use.
Okay. Are there any penalties assigned with these recommendations, or how would that work? I don't know whether you're the person or Mr. Turnage. How would that work if somebody did have an Airbnb or kept their Airbnb in an R1 after this was to pass?
So far, we have not got to the penalty phase of this that I'm aware of. That Mr. Turnage may know something beyond that.
I'd say that's right, and you'd have to classify it as a misdemeanor in the ordinance for it to be penalized.
Is there anything that anybody can add on that issue?
That's about all I have, I think.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. There was also discussion last night about Probst Park. I'd like to address that a little bit as well. In our last town hall meeting that we had about Probst Park, there were individuals there who really kind of wanted to be able to speak, and we weren't set up for it that night. And I talked to them, and some of the council members did afterwards, and talking about ways that we can get the information out. It's difficult to communicate with everybody. Even with social media, everybody doesn't look at that. And so as we move forward, Probst Park is a top priority for everybody. But it's important that we remember that whatever changes we do there and when we do them, we also have to have a plan to be able to maintain them. Parks like that need a good budget, and they need a plan in place. So I'm very interested in moving it forward as quickly as possible, but I'm also want to get as much input from the community as we can, and I would rather err on the side of moving it a little bit slower and making sure we get that, and so that we don't have citizens who felt that like they were left out of the loop on it. Also, I think it's important, and I've had this conversation with members of the Board of Supervisors, that I don't think the city and county should completely ever get away from the possibility of bringing them back together. I think personally, when the city and county decided to move separately in Parks and Rec, that it was not a good move for the citizens. I think there's clear evidence of that. I've talked to citizens today that were in my office visiting about it, that feel like that it really put a divide in the city and the county. As I always remind my good friends at the Board of Supervisors, that the city is within the county, a large portion of the county, and so that we're not in direct conversations about bringing the parks back together, but those have been discussions that we've had just informally. I'm of the mindset that if Probst Park is going to thrive and be what it can be for the city, it would do so. It would be better to have the parks coming back together. And so as we're moving forward with this, I want us to make it as quickly as possible, but I want to make sure we're doing our due diligence again. not only to make it the best park that it can be and can bring more resources into the city, but to make sure we do it right and we do it in a way that we can sustain it. Yes, sir.
One last question. Earlier in the week, I got a very good report from a department, and I appreciate Joe Dillon getting it for me. It was very professionally done. Unfortunately, the stuff that we get every month, there just seems to be some haphazardness, including, I'm not trying to, pick, because I mean, everybody can make mistakes, but the math isn't even right on it. So I'm kind of sitting there looking at what is a very good report.
Mm-hmm.
So the information's there. There's no mystery to it. And, what can we do that same confidence that you have on that report is being on the reports that we're doing for the monthly?
Right. Well, again, we've been a little short-staffed, and we are aware of the reports that were in error that you're referencing, and again, we have a new COO in place that is going to be very helpful in working with the department heads on this. And also, I think once we get the CFO in place, it will help on all those reports and getting them out in a timely fashion. We definitely want to do that, and we want to make sure they're correct. And that's what we'll be striving to do. And we appreciate it when citizens point out to us that the information is not there. The thing I like about that is it tells me that citizens are paying attention, and they definitely need to be. As I've mentioned many times, and I think the council agrees as well, the elected officials cannot do everything. Communities that are really thriving have a very active citizenry, and we should all be willing to be held accountable for anything that we're not doing to the best of our ability. And I always want that to be pointed out. But I also want it to be fair as much as possible. There are people who put information out there as if they're facts, and they're not. There's information that goes out where the people that they're talking about, they haven't even talked to personally. And I think that's important when you're going to criticize a councilman or somebody, that you do your due diligence and actually visit with them. I think that brings a good trust between elected officials and the media. Of course, I've done my spiel about the Fourth Estate before. I won't do that again. But I think that there's responsibility on both ends, because there are some things that are printed in different, and we have more than one media in town now, that aren't accurate. And many times they don't go back and correct. And I mean, you can take a quote from a different situation and put it in another story, and it takes it out of context. You can report what you think you have information on, but it's always important to go to the source, I think, and I don't think that we're always doing that. And I know the council would appreciate that, and I would too. Again, I have a very tough skin. I've wanted the hard questions. I think a very active citizenry and media makes us a better community. So to answer to your question again, we're going to work diligently to get those things corrected and flawless. Now, the reports going out to the council and to the citizens is sporadic at times. We have loosened in City Hall, in the mayor's office, we've loosened the timeline to get things on the docket, or to get on the agenda, I should say, because we felt like there's sometimes some things come up that need to be handled at this meeting, and they didn't meet a deadline earlier. So when you do that, you have a lot of different information coming out, not always perfectly. So we're going to be always reviewing that to see, do we need to have a harder deadline on information getting to the mayor's office to be able to get it on the agenda. And having a closer look at the reports coming from department heads, from us looking at them more closely from the mayor's office and also from the council, to make sure that we're getting the information out there as accurately and as fast as possible.
What reports are you?
monthly reports that we have gotten hold of, some of them come back with the math isn't even right, or that you haven't even made an arrest. Well, I know you got the information because I've looked at it, and you have a competent report. I mean, it's complete, it's very good. And then what seems to get sent to y'all guys, I can't explain it anything other than it's not done correctly. But clarify, if I thought the entire thing was a mess, I'd say it. But I also want to be fair. Okay, I mean, I've gotten reports that are competent, they're easy to follow. Okay, which makes it even more strange that by the time y'all get it, it's like we made no arrest, which you and I know is not true. There's even some things of not doing some things for housing as far as like codes violated, but we know that's not true. I mean, they do it every 2 weeks, right? That's my concern. And like I said, I wanted to be fair because like I said, I've got a report that's extremely competent. So somewhere between you having legitimate numbers and then what's being sent out as a monthly, there's some sort of flaw in them. And I do think it's fixable, but I also think it just makes everybody kind of look bad. Right. Not that I would think that nobody made an arrest or that there was no code violations.
Any other questions? Casey's here. Did y'all want to ask Casey anything? Yes. Sorry, Casey. I'm not going to let you off that either.
You were so impressive last night with your demonstration. All right, so Director Bush, first, how did the state of the equipment and the situation that the Public Works Department is currently in, how did that develop? I believe I heard from your presentation last night. This is something that has happened over time. In a nutshell, how did you guys get to this point?
This has been ongoing. It's not something that happened overnight. Equipment, especially if you're using equipment on a day-to-day basis. Right now we're back at 410s and you're using them 4 days a week, 10 hours a day. With a period of time span, a good piece of equipment that we use, 7 to 6 years this time, 6 to 7 years this time to try to get rid and replace that equipment while it got some lifespan and that you can get some good money back off of it. And that's what happened. That's what haven't been happening. So we've been trying to do what we need to do, try to make things work out for Public Works. That's constantly trying to keep equipment running, being in the shop, maintenance shop, taking care of that. But we do, with my department, we do what we can to make sure we try to at least keep the city looking as best as we could with what we have.
You said 7, 8 years. Is there any ballpark of the average lifespan of the equipment you guys have right now? Like how long you've had it, like how far past that 7, 8 year period?
Well, how long should you expect it to last, the equipment?
The equipment, I expect from 6 to 7 years with what we use. But the lifespan of the equipment that we have, some 2013, some even 2002. But like I said, we don't have the funds to actually do something, and like I said, this is nothing new that I'm bringing to the table. I've always been trying to get equipment for my department so we can be more efficient in what we're doing. But that hasn't happened, and so we're back here at this point. So, and right now with the equipment that we do have, I'm afraid that it's going to get to the point that just routine maintenance or trying to keep it working, we're losing money that way.
So I know you gave a priority list to the city council last night. Would you go over that list, maybe the reason why each item, just briefly, made that list, what the impact might be?
Sure.
Going about it.
That first item I gave was the 323 excavator. That's our biggest piece of equipment that we have. Right now, that equipment to repair just the part that's actually broken on it right now is a little over $30,000. And I'm afraid if we don't go ahead and fix it, something that's gonna go wrong with it, and we're gonna be out of more money than, the 30,000.
And what's the impact of, you mentioned trying to get some of this equipment in before the cutting season?
Yes.
The impact of not having this excavator, in the next 3 months?
The excavator, we can maneuver around some things, but what it'll do, it will put us behind on some of the demos, demolition that they ask for with some of the houses that we get to, forward from code enforcement to my department to, go ahead and immediate abatement, to demo the house or even do other stuff around the house, cleaning up around it, to get it back to city standards. That will put us behind further. That's why one reason I stated last night that we are in the predicament we are now with some of our drainage ditches. Now, not all of the ditches are just per se from just cleaning and stuff, because we have some undersized stuff that's going on in the city too with pipes and all that. But one piece of equipment trying to go in these 6 different wards, we're not gonna make it like that. The boom truck, we have 3 boom trucks, as I mentioned last night. 2 of those boom trucks need major repairs on. So we're actually trying to run this city with one boom truck, because the other 2 boom trucks, if you take the other one out, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later or the same week, that boom truck is back in the maintenance shop, trying to get repair work on it. That's why if we get another good boom truck, a practically good used boom truck, something that will not keep us in the maintenance shop 2 to 3 weeks. The crew cab trucks is something me and the mayor mentioned, and he had great concerns about the pickup truck, the crew cab trucks that my guys get around in. We're down to maybe 8 trucks on the yard for my grass crew. And trying to get these guys around to the location that they need to be in each wards, it's a hard thing to do when we have, out of the 8, you might have 2 that actually running. That's in good shape. The other stuff is the zero turn I mentioned, riding zero turn lawnmowers. We have 2 of those actually zero turns that's motored and it's just gone, and that's from not just from neglect of maintenance on it, it's just wear and tear. And that last one was a backhoe, just another backhoe to put in the ward to keep me from using one backhoe trying to take care of 6 wards. And that's a hard thing to do when I got different operators waiting on a piece of equipment to do their job.
I know in your statements last night, you said you guys have to start somewhere in terms of addressing the repair needs. What is the most pressing long-term impact, do you think, if these equipment needs continue to go unaddressed, impact to local property, the drainage issue continuing to erode private and public land?
All of that. It would incur all of that because we don't have the equipment to get in and properly take care of the small issue before it become a big problem. So we would incur all of those.
I have one question regarding this, and this is for the mayor, Casey, Councilman Beard, anybody who wants to answer. There have been since September discussions related to the priority of increased pay and now the priority of improving equipment. And I understand that both of those things are benefits and to some degree necessary. What comes first, or how do you balance that? Because right now there's serious discussions about pay raises, pay increases, and now there's serious equipment needs, or there have been serious equipment needs in departments. As a city, as a department head, which one do you attack first, and how do you prioritize those needs with the funding situation that the city has?
Right. Well, the way that I would like to try to address that is they're both serious and should be looked at simultaneously. That's why it's key that we get a good CFO in here to work with our new COO, to work with the department heads to set those priorities. Which can we financially healthily do first, and what is going to have the greater impact on the citizens? We know that we are running behind other municipalities and counties in our area for pay for our employees. We pointed out that one of the things that we do have better is health insurance than some of the others, which helps balance that out some, but it's not enough. When we get a new CFO in here, one of the things that I think the city needs to make a priority is on capital improvements and infrastructure. What you do in a healthy financial environment for a city is that you're always planning for equipment replacement, car replacements for the police department and equipment and fire departments. You know, there are lots of different things that have caused the city not to have the finances that they need to make sure that we're staying on top of these issues within each department. But going forward, we really need to try to have a plan that's so the short answer to your question is we need to do both.
Well, right, but you gotta get there first. And Mr. Bush, if you don't mind, if you had to pick one to go first, which one of those two would be most beneficial to your department, the equipment or the raises?
He's not going to answer.
See, that's the quandary that we're in, because we all want to pay our employees better.
Right.
We want to do it on a fair way too, so it's fair to all the employees. It's also good to be able to do it to the employees that are performing well. You know, when you have an organization our size, all your employees are not going to always be performing well. That's just the nature of the beast. But your work environment has a big impact on your mental ability and your, you know, whether you're excited to come to work or not. We have offices in the city that people have buckets to catch the water. You know, that's not a healthy environment to work in. I will tell you that employees that I talk to, and I talk to them on a regular basis, have said that whereas they understand that we're not in a good position to give salary raises right now, they're looking for a healthy work environment where the morale is high, where they feel like they're, you know, being supported by department heads and leadership within the city. That is the indication that I've gotten from a lot of them, but I can't speak for everybody. But at the end of the day, we've got to remember when we're making these decisions about our employees, about the equipment, that we're using taxpayer dollars. So when we're making these decisions, we've got to be thinking about what's best for the community overall. So does that answer it?
I mean, it does to an extent, but I mean, everybody's talking about the financial emergency that is the city finances right now. And you've got these emerging needs.
Okay.
That at some point you've got a tier, this is what we're gonna do, then we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do
Okay.
this. And so I'm asking where pay raises and equipment rank in that hierarchy.
Well, I think you saw that we ranked pay raises the highest in the last budget, but the money was not there.
Right.
So we did not give the pay raises. So with the last vote of the council and going into the budgeting process, salaries were the top.
Okay.
Clearly. The other discussion that I think you're alluding to is do we use one-time money for salaries? I'm not for that. I've talked to the employees about that in large groups and individually. I'm not for it, not because I'm not for them, because I am. I'm not for it because I don't think it's the best use of that money at this time. That's a personal decision on mine, and one as mayor when I'm trying to help direct policy that I think I should be forthright about. It would be much easier for me to say, oh, let's give it to the employees. That's, you know. But when I assess it, when I talk to professionals about it, I think one organization suggested that I reach out to other mayors and talk to them since I'm a new young mayor out of higher ed. I do that. Nobody's ever asked me that before, but I do on a regular basis. I talk to them. I talk to our legislators on a regular basis. I talk to supervisors. This is not Keith Gaskin, I think I've got all the answers. This is me trying to reach out to people who have experience in this, but also can help see the long-term solutions for the city. We've got to simultaneously be dealing with the short-term problems we have, but also have our mindset for long-term stability of the city. So, in my opinion, we need to try to tackle some of these equipment issues first, because of the impact that it's having in the neighborhoods and on the citizens. A lot of these issues, as far as flooding is concerned, has been going on for quite some time. We tend to forget about it when we don't have a rainy season, but when the rainy season comes, it's a huge issue. I also believe that if you're going to hire employees to do their job well, you've got to give them the equipment and proper things that they have. So to me, that would be, and make sure they have the equipment in the fire department and the police department that's going to keep them safe. Sometimes raises, these small raises that we're talking about, just pop somebody up into a different tax bracket, and they really don't see it in their pocketbook. That's why I want to have somebody who has experience in determining how's the best way to do the raises, whether it be across the board or whether it be for performance, to make sure that when these employees are receiving the raises, that it's actually making a difference in their pocketbook. I also want to set a standard across the different departments to let employees know when they come in, if there's at certain benchmarks, you have the potential to make this amount of money. Your salary has the potential to go to this area. A lot of other municipalities have done that type of thing, and I think it helps. I would also like to have more opportunities for our employees to have benefits to help them take classes at EMCC or the W if they can. A lot of times I've talked to, I was talking to the mayor of Hattiesburg a while back about what they had done for their police department to be able to maintain their officers, and many of them were already in classes. So if they're taking classes and they're working on their degrees and the city's helping do that, then they're less likely to go off somewhere else. When you have people like that working on their education at the same time, that's a benefit to them and to the community and to the city. So there are a lot of different things I think we can try to do outside of just pay raises that can be beneficial to the employees, but not to overemphasize the importance that we've got to catch up to what other employees are being paid, and not to go through all the issues of why it hasn't happened over time. We've been discussing all those things. So I would say equipment is a top priority right now, in my opinion, but also understanding that we need to do everything we can to find, you know, the resources to increase the salaries that need to be increased. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
We have one question sent in for Casey. We had one question sent in for Casey. I don't think it's a trick question, but if you had the $100,000 right now, what piece of equipment would you buy to start? What would most benefit the city?
$100,000 not gonna get me a piece of heavy equipment, Joe.
Okay.
It'll be a zero turn and, like I said, and a couple of weed eaters.
Okay. Well, we'll just submit it. I thought I'd ask it.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, you know, you do, and that's what they're working on, is setting on priorities on what equipment is needed the most. I mean, they need it all, but yeah, if you had, yeah, not a bad question. Is that it? Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.